Hello, welcome to another episode of Clues, Cues and Reviews, and today we're looking at World Trigger 134. The scanlation dropped late last night. I promised I would do it today. I am leaving it really late, being that it's like 12:30 more or less now. So, an interesting chapter, not as eventful as the last few, but this is kind of like the cool down chapter before it starts off something else. Some very interesting points. So without further ado, let's get into the review. So point number one, the chapter starts off from where the last one ended, where Huse meets Reggie, or Reggie Dats or whatever his name is, and pretty much it's exactly what we thought was going to happen with it. He basically wants off the planet, which is a fine request because he wants to go back. As we know, there's a whole issue going on his home planet with finding the god or the king, and the sacrificer is going to be his mentor. So he explains the house is from, which is Bertisto or something along those lines. But anyway, he explains that he wants off the island, but the problem here now is Reggie now is pondering, and there's like a little flashback, and there's a conversation with Gatlin, and he basically says, if there's any prisoners you see on this expedition from like a neighbor country, execute them. So that's literally what's going on. And at the same time, what happens is the little kid, Yutaro Rindo, the one that's always on the hook, practically, he comes over, and that's how that scene ends. So an interesting point, but regardless of the outcome of what Reggie says, we already know he's got the ulterior motive because he knows he hasn't been given authority to take anyone back with him. So it's just an interesting point. So that's point number one. So point number two is quite interesting because it goes back to that fight, and Gatlin, and our favorite attacker has basically Tachikawa, has been cut in half. Somehow Gatlin survived, which surprises Tachikawa, but he basically says, surprising. But what happens is Gatlin's still able to shoot off the cannon. Thankfully, Murakami is fully able to shield it, which even surprises Gatlin. So to say that he was able to block such a powerful attack surprised a neighbor member, which really is a powerful dude. That cannon is something else. And goes impressive. But before he can get captured, he bails. So he does a bailout effectively, which surprises a lot of people. And then you get Rata they call him, don't they? Rata's impressed by their teamwork, and he bails. So it surprises a lot of people, even the people and the leaders in the back, saying, oh, they've got that technology. But at the same time, it makes sense. You'd think that because these people, as in Earth for the main kind of plot line, the characters from Border, the people have been able to utilize that technology to use it. So you'd think that the original people with the triggers would also be able to do it. So it's pretty much a positive thing, in my opinion, because it'd be weird to have some people that can and some people that can't. And it's good that, because to be honest with you, that dude was powerful, and I'd love to see him in upcoming fights again. So Gatlin, making him rather than an enemy, making him a friend would be an interesting point for any member of Border, in my opinion. I'd love to have him. But that was just an interesting point for point number two. So point number three, after that scene with the bailout, it goes back to where Yutaro is with Husei and Reggie, and basically Yutaro gives the trigger back to Husei, and then it goes into a bit of a flashback. It's a conversation between Jin and Yutaro, and they're kind of talking about, do you reckon he'll join, do you reckon he'll leave? It's like a 50-50 chance, and Yutaro basically says it'd be nice to have him, but more than likely he's going to leave. So Jin returns the trigger to him, and he says if he does decide to leave, give him this, which is interesting because Jin himself is already planning all these things out, because he's got all these different options, and he wants to make sure that the most positive and the best one is followed through. So an interesting kind of development there, that he already foresaw this. Jin's ability is just crazy. He's like the Aizen of this world, practically. He's pulling the strings, which I'll talk about in the final point, but an interesting point to consider for point number three. So point number four, it takes a turn for the worst. So what I mean by this is Reggie, being the piece of that he is, basically says, Prove your loyalty. Prove you're one of us. You've been with these people for a while. Who to say you haven't turned? Which is a valid point in the art of war. You know, in the idea of war. You know, you should be careful who you trust. You can never be too careful, I guess, in anything, but especially in war when you're taking over other countries or other places, I guess. So he goes, prove your loyalty by kidnapping him. And you're thinking, in the back of your mind, from a reader's point of view, thinking, you piece of, that kid's been nothing but good to him. And if Hughes actually made that decision to actually kidnap him, that would make him a piece of shit as well. Sorry, as I did. But what makes things a little bit to the better is, as it ends, although he's put in a predicament where he has to make that choice, we see that Jin's there. That makes everything okay. Okay, he hasn't got his black trigger, or does he? But it ends with that note. What decision do you think Hughes is going to make? It's going to be an interesting one. I think it could be a bit of a douchebag move if he's been like treated like not even a prisoner of war. He's been just treated like one of their own, and he decides to kidnap him. Hopefully Jin's there. He can make things okay, but it would be a bit of a bad move. Me personally, I see Hughes as a more honourable man. I don't know why he just gives off that vibe, being that he's got very good intentions going back and protecting his mentor. I hope he does the right thing, but it'll be interesting to see what happens, and that's how the chapter ends, which leads on to point number 5, a bit of speculation. So point number 5 is more of a speculation. I find it interesting throughout all these chapters, the main ones for battle, that Jin's always pulling the strings somehow. So you can say that, oh, you know, Jin saw him being cut down, but that's what he said he saw. He didn't say what he really saw. He maybe has said what he has to say to pull the strings in a certain way for the best outcome. For example, knowing his relationship and the personality of Tachikawa, maybe he told him he was cut in half to prompt him to go down that route, so he could use that to his advantage, knowing how he thinks. Because Tachikawa was like, oh yeah, I overcame the prophecy and I used it to my advantage. But maybe Jin wanted that to happen, and maybe Jin, knowing how Yutaro was with Hughes, gave him the black the trigger. It looked like a black trigger, to be fair, but he gave him the trigger knowing he would make the right decision. So it's interesting how Jin's always pulling the strings in the background, getting the people in the right place and making the right decisions. He's an interesting character. I would love to see what else he has planned, but that's my little tidbit for point number 5. I hope you enjoyed the chapter. I hope you enjoyed the review. If you are new and you're not aware, if something you like in these reviews, please give me a thumbs up and leave it in the comment section below. If there's something you dislike, thumbs down, leave it in the comment section below. If you haven't done already, please subscribe. And regular reviews of this, I will be pushing this out there because I really want this out there. I really want people to enjoy this, and really for the story to get the credit it deserves. Okay, the anime is out as well, but this should really be blowing up, and I really want it to. So can you continue showing your support to me and this manga and this anime and this series. See you later. Peace.